I started to get interested in DevOps because I was feeling the pain as a developer trying to get my stuff through test and into production. There were all these friction points. Every 3 months there would be a broken test environment and we'd have to try and figure out who was going to fix it.
G'day guys, today I'm here with Innes. How are you, Shaw?
I'm very well, how are you?
I'm good. I want to talk all about DevOps.
Awesome, favourite topic of mine.
Yes, and what is your actual title?
My title is DevOps Strategist.
And do you know many people with DevOps in the title? Because
Yeah, there are a few. I guess there's a divide in the industry as to whether you should have DevOps in your title. For me, it's worked really well. It's allowed me to work within the company and people recognise that I'm someone who knows about DevOps.
Right.
And as a strategist, I'm able to sort of look at our strategy of how we do DevOps within the company.
Okay, all right. So how long have you been in this role?
Maybe 8 or so months now.
Okay.
Yep.
So is this a new initiative for your company?
It's quite new. We've been doing like an agile and DevOps transformation for about 12 months now.
Right.
And as part of that, I decided to take on this new role that sort of helps us to get the cultural and technical changes in place.
Well, I know a lot of devs that love DevOps and would love your role.
Yep.
So tell me, in your company, like, let's go back a couple of years, what was it like? Like, how long did it take to deploy, or what pain were you suffering for them to say, let's get a DevOps guy in charge of this?
I guess there was a lot going on. We were doing very waterfall software development, maybe 3-month development cycles, so it would take at least 3 months for a feature to go from concept all the way through into production. And we had developers and testers who were working in sort of functional silos. So work would get done by a developer, it would get passed over to a tester, it would get passed back to a developer. The environments were managed in a very manual way. So for that, if there was a problem with the environment, it was always a bit of who looks after environments, developers or testers or infrastructure operations. So that was one of the pain points. And that, I guess, is why I started to get interested in DevOps, because I was feeling the pain as a developer trying to get my stuff through test and into production. There were all these friction points. Every 3 months there would be a broken test environment and we'd have to try and figure out who was going to fix it.
Have you got any idea how much like a downtime event could cost you?
Well, every 3 months, it was potentially taking 2 or 3 devs out of doing actual work to fix. So however much that costs for 2 or 3 days per cycle by 2 or 3 devs, it starts to add up.
But you work for Tatts.
That's right.
If your site seriously goes out.
If the site goes out?
Yeah, like a serious DevOps event.
Yeah, well, I guess it could cost us millions of dollars.
Do you feel that pressure yourself?
I don't think I wouldn't feel pressure. I think it's a pretty supportive environment.
Yeah.
But it's always in the back of your mind. We are making quite a lot of money. We don't want the sites to go down. Okay. And so, I guess that's another reason why we've looked at using DevOps and automation, is to get rid of as much of the potential for human error in the release process.
Okay. So can you tell us your stack? And then I might ask what the tools are.
Yep. So the development stack, it's a variety. At the moment, it's predominantly Microsoft and Windows based. So we've got some SQL databases, C++, transaction processing systems, .NET middle tiers, WCF, things like that, all the way through to the web stack, which is Microsoft predominantly at the moment. But things are changing. We're looking at other tools, open source products, and finding the right tools for the job.
Okay.
Yep.
And what are maybe the third-party tools that you've put into the process to help gather or help automate things and help gather some metrics and stuff?
The main tools we're using at the moment is things like TeamCity for automated builds, and things like Octopus Deploy for automated deployments. Self-service deployments, I guess, is the other thing. So we've moved away from a sort of centralised team where they manage the source control and they manage the deployment process, to giving the power and the control of that back to the development teams so that developers can be responsible for that. sort of action. And then it goes through a number of processes and into a release and operations team. So there's still the gating process to go to production, so we've got some safety around that, but we don't have to wait for someone to look after those things.
So there's a lot of teams, I assume. How many teams are you inspecting?
Across wagering, lotteries and gaming, there's probably close to 20 teams doing different areas.
And how do you consider one team healthy and one team not? Like, is it number of deployments a week? How do you look at health?
We're still in the process of defining exactly what that is, but there's a number of good DevOps maturity models around, and so they look at things like speed to market or release time, number of deployments per day, test coverage, things like that. And so we're just looking at which ones of those would fit into our environment, tailoring it, I guess, to what we need.
So what are some of the tools that you have discarded? Have you ever looked into trying to, I don't know, use some tools and they haven't worked for you?
Yeah, I guess as part of this we're introducing new tools, so we are trying to rationalise so that we don't have 50 tools to do the same job. Previously, I guess just because of the history of Tatts, we had a lot of in-house written tools to do some of our releases, and as times have changed and we've looked at new source control tools and new build products, some of those tools were very bespoke and haven't really fit in with the new way of working. So we've kind of decommissioned a few of those and brought in more industry accepted and contemporary tools.
What are they? What are you thinking of?
Things like GitHub. So we had a variety of version control systems, and we've sort of stabilised on just using GitHub now, which is really, I think, there's the technical aspect, but also the cultural aspect of these things, where everyone sort of knows about GitHub, so it's kind of it attracts new people into Tatts, or people that join are kind of like straight away they know the tools. Things like TeamCity, Octopus Deploy, whereas before we were using some other tools like Microsoft or specific, Windows-only tools, whereas a few of these are cross-platform. So as we move into a more heterogeneous environment with Linux and Windows, we've got tools that support both.
Is there any particular things that you've tried to nail that you just haven't nailed yet?
I think personally for me it would be the measurement and metrics side of the whole DevOps picture. Some of it's quite hard, I guess, to measure team performance, or as you questioned, which teams are doing better than others. So I don't feel like that's perfect at the moment, but there are some good things around, and we're just trying things and seeing how we go.
Have you, so when an error happens, how are you alerted? Have you looked at Raygun or App Insights or any of these? So we have, we use for logging. I guess there are 20 teams. Different teams are at different levels of maturity on this sort of journey. So we're looking at things like Serilog and Seek for logging. We've got a couple of teams experimenting with things like Elasticsearch for log aggregation. We have AppDynamics for APM, and we're using the Microsoft SCOM tools for server monitoring of the actual server fleet. So I guess there's a number of tools for different things, and it's just a matter of getting them all to work nicely together. True. So if I was to come and talk to you in a year, do you think that you will start, what things do you think you'll have added? Or have you maybe added Chef and automatically provisioning VMs, or where do you want to get to in the next year?
So that's a really good question, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there. We've actually been looking at Chef for the last around few months, I guess, 3 or 4 months, because we looked at continuous delivery, automated builds, automated deployments, because that was the biggest problem we had at the time, probably 12 months ago. Now we've started to sort of break the back on that one. The next biggest challenge is infrastructure automation, because we don't have consistent VMs to put our software into. So I started looking at Chef. We've got a team who's done a proof of concept of Chef, and it seems to be working really well for us. So the next step is to get that out into the wider community.
So do you think that your Octopus will be using Chef and some recipe to automatically provision this fresh instance?
Yep. That's the plan. At the moment, we've got one team who's heavily using it. So from development through to test, pre-production and not quite production, they're able to, the developers can define what a VM should look like. So which Windows features and roles are enabled, what folders are shared and things like that. They can then self-service that into an internal cloud. They can deploy their applications automatically using Octopus. They can do builds that kick off all of this in an automated way. So I guess that's our first step into that area, but it's been pretty successful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last question will be related to the measuring. I know you just mentioned that you haven't, that's one of the areas you haven't got to, but are there any stats you've looked at trying to gather, which tools are helping you, and where do you want to get to with this?
Yep. So I guess there's anecdotal stats. We have gathered bits and pieces as to the number of builds or the time of builds. And I guess one example is one of the teams that was doing builds and deployments. It was taking them 2 days per iteration, so 2 days a fortnight. A developer was tied up downloading that software to their PC, building it, copying it onto a test server, fiddling around, breaking and fixing. And we've got that down using just TeamCity and Octopus to, I think, around 8 minutes from the check-in to a deployment to the test system. So we went from one deployment a fortnight for a whole team to about 80 per day now. We filled up lots of disks and, broke a lot of stuff because we were doing so many builds, but I guess that was a good problem to have at that time. So that's just sort of the scale of where we went to with that team. And there are other similar stories with some of the other teams.
But a lot of DevOps, like the key to DevOps is being able to talk to the business and like getting to the point where you're putting maybe monetary values on different things or including Google Analytics or any of that. Is there, like in 12 months' time, is there any metrics you hope to have started to gather?
I would like to think that, and this is something I haven't looked at, but I know other people are looking at data insights and business metrics within the company. So we could possibly say that feature that we were able to use DevOps tools and processes, we could get that feature from a business person's mind into production in a few days or a week, and this is how much money we've made from that feature. Or we thought it would make this much money, turns out it wasn't as good an idea as we thought, so let's take it back out again. I think that's a sort of aspirational goal, but totally achievable.
Okay, well that's been awesome. Thank you, Shaw.
No
I really
worries.
enjoyed chatting to you.
Yeah, thanks.
And maybe we'll catch up in 12 months' time and see where you've got to.
Definitely.
So with that, this is Adam Cogan signing off for SSW TV.